This video is meant as an act of self-reflection because forcing myself to write a script and then record the video and then put it on the internet is a way of making myself think about the things about myself and my life that I usually don't want to confront. So with that said, this video is not me trying to get pity from anybody or even meant as complaining. It's meant as a way for me to examine myself and see what I can do to make the necessary changes in my life. So when I created the Word document for this video, I named it Feeling Like a Failure. But I spelled failure wrong. I spelled it F-A-I and then R and then L-U-R-E instead of, the normal spelling of failure. And the way I felt about myself for this simple little mistake perfectly encapsulates the topic of this video. My brain started telling me so many insane things about fucking up the spelling of failure. You can't do anything right. Your life is sad. You're a fucking idiot. You should fucking kill yourself. All that shit. And you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of these thoughts. I know in a sense that they're outside of my control, but it's really affecting my life, and I'm tired of it. So what's weird is the way my confidence is essentially split down like an invisible dividing line. So on one side of it, I feel somewhat confident in myself when it comes to like my basic intelligence. Like I feel like I'm a pretty smart person who knows stuff or whatever. Like I'm good at remembering specific dates. I'm good at math, things like that. And I'm a pretty good problem solver. Like I feel confident in my abilities in those things, even if I can't spell the word failure. But on the other hand of that line, my self-confidence related to the way I interact with the world and the people in that world is completely gone. Like it feels almost non-existent. For example, I'll walk into the library and I'll just start thinking that anyone who sees me is probably thinking something along the lines of, what is that person doing here? They don't belong here. They look like a weirdo. They look like a creep. Any sort of thing like that, I'm afraid people are thinking about me. And I used to think that people actually thought that about me, because I guess it's because I'm a mentally ill person, and I'm not always in reality. But I'm beginning to now think that how I feel others are perceiving me actually has nothing to do with other people, but instead with how I perceive myself. If I see my mental image of myself as a failure who can't do anything right and who's a weirdo, then it makes sense that when I imagine how other people see me, I don't imagine what realities. Fuck. I don't imagine what reality is, which is probably people just seeing a regular person. That instead, I imagine people looking at me the way I look at myself. So this kind of led me to a question. Do I hate myself? And I didn't used to really think that I did, but upon reflection, considering how it seems like I feel about myself on a daily basis, maybe I do. So I did the only logical thing that there is to do. I took an online quiz. Because why should I actually self-reflect when the internet can just tell me if I am or am not something? So what I find interesting is that I do think a lot of my answers to these questions were healthy, such as my answers to questions regarding things about failure being a part of life and thinking positively about myself. But then there are the answers to questions about ruminating over my flaws, beating myself up for my failures, and judging myself, which were all much more negative. The question, though, that fucked with me the most is I like who I am, which, upon reading that, is actually a statement that I had to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 or whatever. But we'll just say question for the simplicity of things. But the reason that this question fucked with me so much is because I don't know. The fact is, it's not as simple as do I love or hate myself. I genuinely, in that moment, had no idea what to answer for that question, and it's reflected by how long it took me to answer it, which is demonstrated by this clip that may look like it's a freeze frame, but is actually just me thinking about which option to choose. I think the fact that while I do feel like a failure and depressed about myself so much of the time, and yet my answers were often positive, healthy beliefs, demonstrates this idea that how one feels about themselves is not a simple question that can be answered in a few words or in a choice between 1 and 5. The fact is, mental illness is not logical. It doesn't make sense. Something I like to say, or in reality something I've said a few times before in my life, is that if mental illness made sense, then nobody would be mentally ill. That's what makes it so goddamn difficult to be neurodivergent. It's what makes it so embarrassing that I know I shouldn't be feeling this way or acting on this compulsion or whatever the fuck I'm doing, and yet I still feel that way. And the fact is, it's okay to be this way. It's okay to have completely insane, logicless thoughts, because they aren't you, or they aren't me, or whoever's having them, they're not them. They're your mental illness. I think over the last year or two, I've lost that separation that I used to see in myself. That I'm not my mental illness, because sadly, sometimes those lines get really freaking blurred, and I can't tell what is me and what isn't. So, I would like to start working on making that distinction myself again. Sadly, I can't commit to doing that or not, because about 85% of me really hates the idea of having to do that, even though the other 15% knows that it would be a good thing to do. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I know this may be an abrupt ending, but that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. But in reality, I won't see you, but you'll see me. Which might be something Drew Gooden has said. I honestly can't remember, but if it is, sorry, Drew. But it is true. Ooh, that rhymed. Okay, let's have Breaking Benjamin play us out.